The morning light never reached Taeho's cell. He had spent the night sitting against the cold wall, thinking about the baby and wondering if it was still alive. Sleep had not come. Peace had not come. Only silence and darkness and the weight of his choices. The door opened with a heavy sound. 2 guards stood there, their faces hard and unreadable. They did not speak. They simply gestured for him to follow. Taeho expected to be taken to a trial room. He expected judges and accusations and a death sentence. What he did not expect was to be taken to the command center, where Commander Hyan stood with a face that was somehow even more troubled than before. "Lieutenant," the commander said, "something has happened." Before Taeho could ask what, the main screen at the center of the room lit up. It showed the space above the planet, where human defense platforms floated like metal islands. And there, moving slowly through the stars, was a Valari warship. Not just any warship. This was a command vessel, one of the largest in the Valari fleet. Its hull was silver and blue, shaped like a blade cutting through the darkness. Around it flew a dozen smaller ships, escorts that could destroy the entire human base in minutes. But they were not attacking. "They arrived 1 hour ago," Commander Hyan said. "They sent a message. A ceasefire request. They want to talk." Taeho felt confusion wash over him. The Valari had never requested a ceasefire before. They had never shown any interest in talking. This war had been nothing but blood and fire from the first day. What did they want? He asked. Commander Hyan turned to look at him. There was something strange in his eyes. Fear, maybe. Or wonder. Or both. "They want you." The message was played for everyone in the command center. The Valari voice was cold and musical, like wind through ice. The words were translated by the base's computer, appearing as text on the screen. "To the human forces. I am High Commander Yira of the Valari 3rd Fleet. You have something that belongs to me. My daughter was lost during the battle 3 days ago. Her escape pod crashed in territory now held by your forces. I have received information that she is alive and in your possession. I demand to see the human who found her. I demand to know why she still lives." The message repeated twice, then stopped. The command center was silent. Taeho felt his legs go weak. The baby was High Commander Yira's daughter. Not just any Valari child, but the child of one of the most powerful military leaders in their entire civilization. If Yira wanted, she could burn this entire planet to ash, and she wanted to see him. Commander Hyan spoke first. "We received the message and confirmed with intelligence. High Commander Yira is one of the 3 most senior officers in the Valari military. She has destroyed more human ships than any other commander. She's responsible for the death of over 50,000 of our soldiers." He paused, letting the numbers sink in. "And her daughter is currently sleeping in our medical section, being fed fruit paste by our medic." No one laughed. No one even smiled. "What do we do, sir?" One of the officers asked. Commander Hyan was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Taeho. "That depends on the lieutenant. The Valari have requested a meeting. They want to come here, to our base, under ceasefire flags. High Commander Yira will come personally, with a small escort. She wants to face the human who saved her child." "It is a trap," another officer said immediately. "They will learn our defenses and then attack." "Perhaps. But if we refuse, they will attack anyway. They have enough firepower to destroy us completely. At least this way, we have a chance." Taeho stepped forward. His voice was steady, though his heart was racing. "I will meet her." Every head turned to look at him. "I saved her daughter. I am responsible for this situation. If High Commander Yira wants answers, I will give them to her. If she wants blood, she can take mine. But the base should not suffer for what I did." Commander Hyan studied him for a long moment. "You understand that she might kill you the moment she sees you, Yes. Sir, you understand that this could all be a trick. Yes. Yes. Sir, and you still want to do this. Tejo thought about the baby, about its silver eyes and cool skin, about the way it had fallen asleep in his arms, trusting him even though he was the enemy. He had made a choice that day in the ruins. He had chosen to be something other than a soldier. Now he would see that choice through to the end. Yes, sir. I do. The preparations took 6 hours. A meeting room was set up in the neutral section of the base, where neither side would have an advantage. Security teams checked every corner for weapons or traps. Communication systems were tested and retested. Everyone was nervous. Hannah came to see Tejo before the meeting. She had been confined to quarters after the discovery, but no one had hurt her. Not yet. Her face was pale, but her eyes were determined. The baby is safe, she said. They have not harmed it. I think Commander Hyon is waiting to see what happens today. Good. Tejo felt some of the weight lift from his shoulders. Thank you, Hannah, for everything. Do not thank me yet. You might not survive this meeting. I know. She reached out and touched his arm. When you found that baby, you made a choice that most soldiers would never make. You chose compassion over duty. That took courage. Whatever happens today, I am proud to know you. Tejo could not find words to answer. He simply nodded. The Velari shuttle landed outside the base 2 hours later. The escort ships stayed in orbit, their weapons ready but not firing. High Commander Yira emerged from the shuttle with 4 guards, all of them tall and elegant in their silver armor. Yira herself was striking. She stood taller than any human, her skin the same pale blue as her daughter's, her eyes burning with silver light. Her face was beautiful and terrible, like a frozen lake hiding depths that could swallow you whole. She wore no armor, only a long coat of deep blue that flowed behind her as she walked. She walked like someone who had never known fear in her entire life. The human gods led her through the base to the meeting room. Soldiers lined the corridors, watching in silence as the enemy walked among them. Some faces showed hatred. Some showed fear. Some showed nothing at all. When Yira entered the meeting room, she found Tejo waiting alone. She stopped just inside the door, her silver eyes studying him. Her guards took positions along the walls. The silence stretched out like a held breath. You are the one, Yira said finally. Her voice was exactly like it had sounded in the message, cold, musical, dangerous. You are the human who found my daughter. You are smaller than I expected, weaker. Kind has always seemed like insects to us. Numerous but fragile. Easy to crush. Tejo did not respond to the insult. He simply waited. Yira moved closer until she stood only a few feet away. Up close, she was even more intimidating. Her presence filled the room like pressure before a storm. I have a question for you, human. One question. Answer honestly, and you may yet live. Her eyes burned into his. Why did you save my daughter? Your people are at war with mine. My daughter would have grown to be your enemy. You had every reason to let her die. So why did you not? Tejo took a breath. The moment had come. Everything depended on his answer. He met her eyes and spoke the truth. Because she was just a baby. Because she was helpless and alone and scared. Because war is between soldiers, not children. Because some things are more important than sides and flags and armies. He paused. Because I could not look at her and see an enemy. I could only see a child who needed help. The room was silent. Yira stared at him, her face unreadable. Then she spoke again, and her voice was different, softer, almost uncertain. I do not understand you. I do not understand humans at all. But she did not kill him. Not yet. The sky burned orange and red as another explosion shook the ground. Lieutenant Taeho pressed his back against the broken wall and tried to catch his breath. His armor was covered in dust and dried blood. Some of it was his. Most of it was not. The war with the Valari had lasted 7 years now. 7 long years of death and fire and loss. Taeho had been fighting for 5 of those years. He had seen friends die. He had killed enemies he never wanted to kill. War had taken everything soft from his heart and left only stone behind Dot, or so he thought. His squad had been separated during the last attack. The Valari had pushed hard into their position, and his team had scattered to survive. Now Taeho was alone in the ruins of what had once been a small city. The buildings around him were broken shells. The streets were filled with rubble and smoke. He checked his rifle and counted his remaining ammunition. 12 shots. Not enough for a real fight. He needed to find his squad and get back to base before nightfall. The Valari hunted better in the dark. Taeho moved carefully through the ruins. His boots made soft sounds on the broken stones. He kept his eyes moving, watching every shadow, every corner. The Valari were tall and fast, with skin like pale blue ice and eyes that glowed silver in low light. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like winter storms or sharp knives. He hated them. He hated what they had done to Earth, to humanity. They had come from the stars with weapons that turned cities to ash. They had killed millions before humans even understood what was happening. Now both sides were locked in endless battle across a dozen worlds. A sound made him stop. It was faint, almost lost in the wind. He listened carefully. There it was again. A high, thin cry. Like a wounded animal, or like a child. Taeho's heart beat faster. He followed the sound, moving through a collapsed building. The walls had fallen inward, creating a small cave of broken concrete and twisted metal. The crying came from inside Dot. He pushed aside a piece of metal and looked into the darkness. What he saw made him freeze, on an escape pod. Valari design, small and damaged. It had crashed through the building and buried itself in the rubble. The hull was cracked open like an egg, and smoke rose from its broken engines. Inside the pod, wrapped in silver cloth, was a Valari infant. The baby was tiny, no bigger than a human newborn. Its skin was the same pale blue as adult Valari, but softer, almost glowing. Its eyes were closed tight, and its small mouth was open as it cried. There was blood on the silver cloth. The baby was hurt. Tae-Ho stood there for a long moment. His rifle was still in his hands. His finger was near the trigger. This was the enemy. This was the species that had killed so many humans, destroyed so many homes. This small creature would grow up to become another soldier, another killer. He should walk away. He should leave it here to die. That was war. That was survival. But the baby kept crying. Taeho thought about his sister back on Earth. She had a daughter, a little girl named Sue. He had only seen her in photographs. She was 3 years old now, with round cheeks and bright eyes. He had promised himself he would survive this war so he could meet her someday. This Valari baby probably had an aunt too. Or an uncle. Someone who had never seen it except in photographs. Someone who hoped it would survive. Taeho lowered his rifle. He moved carefully into the crashed pod. The metal groaned under his weight, but it held. The baby's crying grew louder as he got closer. He could see now that a piece of metal had cut into the infant's arm. The wound was not deep, but it was bleeding steadily. He did not know Valari biology. He did not know if human medicine would help or hurt. But he knew that if he did nothing, this baby would die. Tae-Ho took off his medical kit from his belt. He cleaned the wound as gently as he could. The baby screamed at the touch, its small body shaking with fear and pain. He wrapped the arm in clean bandages and hoped it would be enough. Then he picked up the baby. It was lighter than he expected. Its skin was cool against his hands, not warm like human skin. The silver cloth was soft, made of some material he had never touched before. The baby stopped crying and looked up at him with wide silver eyes. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Human and Valari. Soldier and infant. Enemy and enemy. Then the baby made a soft sound, almost like a sigh, and closed its eyes. It fell asleep in his arms. Tae-Ho stood in the ruins of the crashed pod, holding his enemy's child, and wondered what he had just done. He could not leave the baby here. It would die before anyone found it. He could not kill it. He had already crossed that line when he bandaged its wound. There was only one choice left. He had to take it with him. Tae-Ho wrapped a silver cloth tighter around the infant and tucked it inside his armor against his chest. The baby was so small that it barely made a bulge. He checked that it could breathe, then picked up his rifle and started moving again. The sun was getting lower. He had maybe 2 hours before dark. His base was still several kilometers away, through enemy territory. He was carrying a wounded alien infant against his chest. This was insane. This was suicide. If his commanders found out, they would court-martial him. If the Valari found him, they would kill him. If anything happened to the baby, he would have risked everything for nothing. But he kept walking. The baby slept against his chest, its small heart beating in a rhythm different from his own. He could feel its breath, cool and light, against his skin. It was alive. For now, that was enough. Tae-Ho did not know why he was doing this. He did not understand the feeling in his chest, the strange warmth that had replaced the cold stone of his heart. He only knew that he could not let this child die. Not today. Not like this. War had rules. War had logic. War said that enemies were enemies, and you killed them before they killed you. But this was not an enemy. This was a baby. And some things were more important than war. Tae-Ho disappeared into the ruins, carrying his impossible burden toward an uncertain future. Behind him, the crashed escape pod sat empty and silent, waiting for someone who would never return. The journey back to base took 3 hours. 3 hours of hiding, crawling, and praying. Tae-Ho moved like a ghost through the broken city, avoiding Valari patrols and staying in the shadows. The baby slept most of the way, waking only twice to cry softly before falling silent again. Each time it cried, Tae-Ho's heart stopped. Each cry was a signal, a beacon that could bring death down upon them both. But somehow, they were not discovered. Somehow, they made it through. The Human 4 base was built into the side of a mountain, hidden behind layers of rock and metal. Tae-Ho approached from the south, using the recognition codes he had memorized. The guards at the outer gate looked tired and worried. They had lost contact with his squad hours ago. When they saw him walking out of the darkness, they raised their weapons. Then they recognized his face and lowered them again. One of them, a young man named Wu, ran forward to help him. "Lieutenant, we thought you were dead. Where are the others?" "Scattered," Tae-Ho said. His voice was rough from hours of silence. "I do not know if they made it. I came alone." Wu nodded and led him inside. The base was busy with activity. Soldiers moved back and forth, carrying supplies and weapons. Screens showed maps of the surrounding area, marked with red symbols for enemy positions. No one paid attention to Tae-Ho. As he walked through the corridors, no one noticed the small shape, hidden under his armor. Tae-Ho went straight to the medical section. It was located in the deepest part of the base, protected by thick walls and heavy doors. Inside, medics worked on wounded soldiers, their hands stained with blood. The smell of medicine and pain filled the air. He found Hana in a small room at the back. She was cleaning her instruments, her dark hair tied back in a practical knot. Hana was the best medic in the base, and she was also his friend. They had known each other since training, years ago. She was one of the few people he trusted completely. She looked up when he entered, and her face changed from surprise to relief to worry. Tahoe, you look terrible. Sit down. Let me check you. I am fine, he said. He closed the door behind him and locked it. I need your help. But you cannot tell anyone. Hannah's eyes narrowed. She knew him well enough to recognize when something was very wrong. What happened out there? Tahoe reached into his armor and pulled out the silver bundle. He unwrapped the cloth carefully, revealing the sleeping Valari infant inside. Hannah's face went white. What? What is that? What did you do? I found it in a crashed escape pod. It was hurt. I could not leave it there to die. Hannah stepped back, her hands raised as if to protect herself. Tahoe, that is a Valari. That is the enemy. Do you understand what will happen if anyone finds out? I know. They will execute you. They will say you are a traitor. They will, I know. He met her eyes, and his voice was steady. But I could not let it die. It is just a baby, Hannah. It has not killed anyone. It has not done anything wrong. It was just there, alone, crying. Hannah stared at him for a long moment. Then she looked at the infant in his arms. The baby was awake now, its silver eyes open and watching her. It made a small sound, almost like a question. Something in Hannah's face softened. Just a little. Just enough. Let me see the wound, she said quietly. She took the baby from him with careful hands. Her movements were gentle, the same way she handled human patients. She unwrapped the bandage Tahoe had applied and examined the cut on the infant's arm. You did good work, she said. The bleeding has stopped, but this needs proper treatment. Valari biology is different from ours. I will have to guess at some things. Can you help it? I can try. Hannah worked for nearly an hour. She cleaned the wound again with different solutions, testing each one carefully before applying it. She used a special cream that promoted healing and wrapped the arm in fresh bandages. The baby cried during the painful parts, but stayed calm when Hannah spoke softly to it. When she was done, the infant looked better. Its breathing was steady, and the pain lines on its small face had smoothed away. It needs food, Hannah said. I do not know what Valari infants eat, but it will not survive long without something. Tahoe had not thought about that. Can we use human food? Maybe, some of it. I have heard that Valari can digest certain things that we eat. Fruit, maybe. Some vegetables. Nothing with meat or dairy. She paused. I will find something. But Tahoe, we cannot keep this secret forever. Someone will find out. I know. I just need time. Time to think. Time to figure out what to do. Hannah nodded slowly. I will help you. But you need to understand something. If this goes wrong, we both die. They will not show mercy to either of us. Then we will not let it go wrong. They made a small bed for the baby in a storage closet connected to Hannah's medical room. It was not comfortable, but it was hidden. Hannah found some fruit paste that the infant seemed to accept, drinking it slowly from a small tube. For 2 days, they kept a secret. Tahoe continued his duties during the day, attending meetings and leading training sessions. At night, he went to the storage closet and watched over the sleeping infant. He did not know why he felt so connected to this small creature. He only knew that its safety had become the most important thing in his world. On the 3rd day, everything fell apart. A soldier named Day was looking for medical supplies in Hannah's section. He opened the wrong door. He found the baby. His screams brought half the base running. Within minutes, Tahoe was surrounded by armed guards. His weapons were taken. His hands were bound. Commander Hyan, the leader of the base, stood before him with a face like thunder. Explain yourself, Lieutenant. Tahoe did not try to lie. There was no point. He told the truth, all of it. the crashed pod, the crying baby, the decision he had made. The commander listened in silence, his expression growing darker with every word. When Taeho finished, Commander Hyun shook his head slowly. You have betrayed your species. You have given comfort to the enemy. You have risked the security of this entire base for a creature that would grow up to kill us. It is a child, sir. It has done nothing wrong. It is Valari. That is enough. The commander turned to his guards. Take him to the holding cells. He will face court-martial tomorrow. The alien will be disposed of. No. Taeho struggled against his bonds, but there were too many hands holding him. Please, sir. Kill me, if you must, but spare the child. It is innocent. It does not deserve to die for what its people have done. Commander Hyun paused. Something flickered in his eyes, something that might have been doubt. But then it was gone. Take him away. Taeho was dragged to the holding cells deep in the base. The door slammed shut behind him, and he was alone in the darkness. He did not know what would happen to the baby. He did not know if Hana would be punished too. He only knew that he had tried to do the right thing, and the right thing had destroyed him. In the silence of his cell, Taeho closed his eyes and waited for morning. Whatever came next, he would face it. He had saved a life. That was worth something, even if it cost him everything. High Commander Yura stood in the middle of the meeting room, her silver eyes fixed on Taeho. Minutes passed in silence. Her guards watched from the walls, their hands near their weapons. Human soldiers watched through cameras in the corridors, ready to respond if anything went wrong. But nothing happened. Yura simply stared at the human who had saved her daughter. In my culture, she said finally, what you did is impossible. We do not show mercy to enemies. We do not protect those who would one day fight against us. Weakness is death. Compassion is foolishness. These are the truths we learn from our first breath. Taeho listened without speaking. When the war began, Yura continued, I believed that humans were primitive creatures. Soft and slow and stupid. I thought the war would last only months. I thought we would sweep across your worlds like fire through dry grass. She paused. I was wrong. You were. A flash of something crossed her face. Anger, perhaps. Or respect. It was hard to tell with Valari expressions. Your kind should have been easy to break. But you fought. You died. You kept fighting. Every time we destroyed one of your ships, two more appeared. Every time we took a world, you took it back. You did not know how to surrender. You did not understand that you were supposed to lose. We are stubborn, Taeho said. It is one of our strengths. Is it stubbornness? Or is it something else? Yura moved closer, her coat flowing behind her. I have killed many humans. I have watched them die in battle, in fire, in the cold of space. And I have noticed something strange. Even at the end, even when there was no hope, they thought about others. They tried to save their friends. They sent messages to loved ones. They worried about people who were not even there. She stopped directly in front of him. Her height forced him to look up to meet her eyes. My people do not do this. When we die, we think only of ourselves, of our failure, of our shame. We do not waste our last moments on sentiment. Her voice dropped to something almost like a whisper. But you do. Why? Taeho thought about the question carefully before answering. Because other people are not separate from us. They are part of us. When we love someone, their pain becomes our pain. Their joy becomes our joy. We cannot help it. It is how we are made. Even for strangers? Even for enemies? Sometimes. Not always. But sometimes, yes. He met her eyes steadily. When I found your daughter, I did not see an enemy. I saw a child who was alone and hurting. I could not walk away from that. It would have broken something inside me that I did not want to lose. Yura was silent for a long moment. Then she turned away and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the ruined landscape. Orange light painted her blue skin in strange colors. "I want to see her," she said. "My daughter. I want to see that she is truly safe." Taeho nodded. He had expected this. "She's being cared for in our medical section. Our medic has been treating her wound and making sure she is fed. She is healthy. Your medic. The female who helped you hide her. Yes, her name is Hana. She risked her life to help your daughter. She did not have to. She chose to." Yura turned back to face him. "You asked me to believe that two humans, enemies of my people, chose to protect the Valari child simply because it was the right thing to do. You asked me to believe that you expected nothing in return. No advantage. No reward. No strategic benefit. I ask you to believe the truth. The truth." Yura's voice was cold again. "I have learned that truth is a weapon like any other. People tell truths to hurt. They tell truths to manipulate. They tell truths to control. And sometimes they tell truths because they are true." Another long silence. Then, Yura made a gesture to her guards. They stepped back, their hands moving away from their weapons. "Take me to my daughter." They walked through the corridors of the human base. Soldiers stepped aside as they passed, their faces a mixture of fear and curiosity. No one had ever seen a Valari this close without trying to kill it. No one had ever walked beside the enemy in peace. Taeho led Yura to the medical section. Hana was waiting outside the door, her face pale but calm. She bowed slightly as Yura approached. "Hi, Commander. Your daughter is inside. She has been sleeping well. Her wound is healing faster than I expected." Yura looked at Hana with those silver eyes. "You are the medic, I am. You saved a Valari child. Your leaders could have executed you for this. They still might." Hana's voice did not shake. "But I would make the same choice again." Something in Yura's expression shifted. It was subtle, barely visible, but Taeho noticed it. A crack in the ice. A moment of doubt. Yura entered the medical room alone. Taeho and Hana waited outside, listening to the silence. Minutes passed. Then more minutes. No sounds came from inside. No screams, no cries, no weapons fire. When Yura finally emerged, she was carrying her daughter in her arms. The baby was awake, its silver eyes bright and curious. It made soft sounds as Yura held it, reaching up with its small hands to touch its mother's face. Yura looked down at the infant with an expression that Taeho had never seen on a Valari before. Love. Pure and simple and overwhelming. "She knows me," Yura said softly. "She remembers my voice." "Of course she does," Hana said. "She is your daughter. That bond does not break easily." Yura looked at them both. Her guards stood behind her, but she was not paying attention to them. All her focus was on the humans before her. "I came here expecting to find monsters," she said. "I came expecting cruelty and deception and cold calculation. I was prepared to kill you and destroy this base and continue the war until one side or the other was completely destroyed." She held her daughter closer. "Instead, I found something I do not understand. I found enemies who saved my child. I found soldiers who risked their lives for no reason except kindness. I found humanity." The word hung in the air like a question. "I do not know what to do with this. I do not know how to fit it into everything I believe about your kind. You are supposed to be our enemies. You are supposed to be evil and weak and deserving of destruction." She shook her head slowly. "But you saved my daughter. How can I call you evil when you saved my daughter?" Taeho stepped forward. "High Commander, we do not want this war. We never wanted it. Humans just want to live in peace. We fight because we must, not because we choose to. Do you think we chose this war? I do not know. I only know that it could end. If both sides were willing. If both sides could see each other as something other than enemies. Yira was quiet for a long time. Her daughter had fallen asleep again, its small face peaceful against her chest. I will return to my ship now, she said finally. I will take my daughter home. I will. Think about what you have said. I make no promises. The war is bigger than me. The hatred runs deep on both sides, I understand. But I will tell you this, human. Taeho. She spoke his name carefully, as if tasting it. I will remember what you did. I will remember that you had the power to let my daughter die, and you chose not to. That choice means something, even if I do not fully understand what. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. Your people have a saying. Actions speak louder than words. I have heard it in intercepted communications. I never understood it before. She looked back at him one last time. I think I am beginning to understand now. Then she was gone, walking through the corridors with her daughter in her arms, her guards following silently behind. The humans watched her leave, and no one said a word. Taeho stood in the empty medical room, feeling something strange in his chest. Hope, small and fragile and probably foolish. But hope nonetheless. Maybe this was how wars ended. Not with grand treaties or dramatic surrenders, but with small moments of understanding between enemies who finally saw each other as people thought maybe. The Valari shuttle left the planet an hour after High Commander Yira reclaimed her daughter. The warship and its escorts jumped to faster-than-light speed shortly after that. Within minutes, the sky was empty again, as if the enemy had never been there at all. But everything had changed. Taeho stood on the observation deck of the base, watching the stars where the Valari ships had disappeared. His hands were free now. His charges had been dropped, at least temporarily. Commander Hyan had decided that executing the man, who might have started peace negotiations, was probably not the best idea. Hana joined him after a while. She did not speak. She simply stood beside him and watched the sky. Do you think it made a difference? Taeho asked finally. I do not know. I hope so. She took her daughter back. She left without attacking. That is something. It is something. Hana nodded slowly. But the war is still happening. Somewhere out there, humans and Valari are still killing each other. One conversation does not change that. No, but it might be a start. They stood in silence for a while longer. The stars were bright and cold, the same stars that had watched humanity crawl up from Earth and spread across the galaxy. The same stars that had seen the Valari do the same light years away. Two civilizations that had never known each other until they collided in blood and fire. I keep thinking about her daughter, Taeho said. About what kind of person she will become. Will she remember this day? Will she know that a human saved her life? Yira will tell her. I am sure of it. And what will she think? Will she hate us less? Will she understand that we are not all monsters? Hana put a hand on his shoulder. You cannot control what happens next. You did what you could. You showed one Valari that humans can be kind. That is all anyone can do. Plant a seed and hope it grows. Taeho smiled slightly. You sound like my mother. Your mother sounds like a wise woman. 3 months passed. The war continued, but something was different. The Valari attacks became less frequent. Their tactics changed, becoming more cautious, less destructive. Human intelligence officers noticed that civilian targets were being avoided more often. Ships were being disabled instead of destroyed. No one knew why. Rumors spread through the human military. Some said the Valari were running low on resources. Some said there was political conflict within their empire. Some said it was just random chance, patterns that meant nothing. Taeho knew the truth. Or at least, he suspected it. High Commander Yura had returned home with more than her daughter. She had returned with doubt. And doubt, once planted, had a way of spreading. 6 months after the meeting, something extraordinary happened. A Valari diplomatic ship arrived at the edge of human space. It carried no weapons. It broadcast messages of peace in every human language. It requested permission to enter and begin formal negotiations for a ceasefire. The negotiations lasted months. They were difficult, filled with anger and mistrust and centuries of hatred. Old wounds were reopened. Old crimes were remembered. There were times when it seemed like everything would collapse and the war would resume, worse than before. But it did not collapse. Slowly, painfully, step by step, humans and Valari found ways to talk to each other. They found ways to understand, if not forgive. They found ways to imagine a future that did not end in mutual destruction. Teho was called to testify during the negotiations. He told his story again, the same story he had told so many times before. The crash pod, the crying baby, the choice he had made. The Valari negotiators listened with expressions that were hard to read. Some of them looked angry. Some looked confused. But some looked thoughtful, as if they were seeing something new. 1 year after Teho found the baby, a ceasefire was signed. It was not peace. Not yet. There were still disputes to settle, territories to negotiate, wounds to heal. But the killing had stopped. For the first time in 8 years, humans and Valari were not trying to destroy each other. On the day the ceasefire was announced, Teho received a message. It came through official diplomatic channels, marked with Valari codes and seals. The sender was High Commander Yura. The message was short. My daughter is well. She's growing fast, learning to walk and speak. She does not know about the war or about the human who saved her. But one day, when she is old enough to understand, I will tell her. I will tell her that in the darkest moment of my life, an enemy showed me kindness. I will tell her that humans are not what I believe them to be. I will tell her that a single act of compassion changed everything. There was a pause in the message, a moment of silence before Yura continued. I have spent my entire life fighting. I have killed more humans than I can count. I have hated your kind with every part of my being. But hate grows tired. Hate cannot last forever. You showed me that there is another way. You showed me that enemies can become something else. Another pause. I do not know if our people will ever truly understand each other. The gap between us is vast, filled with blood and grief and time. But I know this. My daughter lives because of you. And as long as she lives, there is hope. The message ended there. Taiho read it 3 times and saved it to his personal files. He would keep it forever, a reminder of the choice he had made in the ruins of a broken city. 2 years later, the first permanent peace treaty was signed. Human and Valari ambassadors stood together on a neutral station, their hands raised in gestures of friendship. Cameras broadcast the moment across both civilizations. Billions watched as enemies became allies. Teho watched from his home on Earth. He had left the military after the ceasefire, returning to the planet where he was born. His sister's daughter Sue sat on his lap, now 5 years old, asking endless questions about the blue aliens on the screen. Were they scary, Uncle? Some of them were. At first. Are they nice now? Teho thought about High Commander Yura, about her silver eyes and cold voice, about the way she had looked at her daughter, with love that was exactly the same as any human mother's love. I think they are trying to be, he said. Just like we are. Hannah visited him sometimes. She had stayed in the military, becoming one of the first human doctors to study Valari medicine. She was helping to build hospitals that could treat both species. It was difficult work, but she loved it. You started something incredible, she told him once. You saved one baby, and it changed the galaxy. Teho shook his head. I did not change anything. I just made a choice. Everyone made their own choices after that. But your choice came first. That matters. Maybe it did. Maybe one small act of kindness really could ripple outward, touching lives that would never know where it started. Maybe that was how the universe worked. Small moments building into something larger. On quiet nights, Tejo sometimes looked up at the stars and wondered about Yura's daughter. She would be walking and talking now, a little girl growing up in a galaxy at peace. She would never know war. She would never know the hatred that had almost destroyed both their peoples. She would know only that her mother loved her, and that once, long ago, a stranger had saved her life. That was enough. That was more than enough. The war was over. The future was uncertain but bright, and somewhere among the stars, a Valari child slept peacefully, dreaming of worlds she would one day explore without fear, because one human soldier had looked at an enemy and seen something else, because one choice, made in the darkness of a ruined city, had lit a fire that could not be extinguished. Because humanity, for all its flaws and failures, had never forgotten how to be kind. That was their greatest weapon. That was how they won.